So as the grid is formed and we get going on the warm-up lap, Brian Uriarte, your championship leader, heads from pole alongside Jesus Rios and Marco Morelli. Zem Matani, Veda Pratama and Rico Salmel look to stop him on the second row, with Casey O'Gorman, Evan Belford and Adrian Truces on row 3. Joel Esteban, as said, Sunday rider, starting in P10 with Zem Zani, I should say, Leonardo Zani and Dodo Boggio rounding out our top 12. Hakim Dinesh, Ramastoffer and Russo starting from the top 15, with Enzo Ballon, Pugliese and Singapong on row 6. Micheleon, Nicholas and Mountsie go from row 7, with Uchimi, Moloyani and Famara going from the top 24. Farkas, Lucas Brown and Bertola round out your top 27, while Daniel Jr., Tiete and Schronrock round out top 30. Schronrock, good qualifying for him. He looked to work today for the order anyway, with Truntrot and Wojciechowski on the final 2 spots. But we're on the warm-up lap now, and well, it's certainly feeling like a deciding race in this one. Tension is sky high, and all of Brian Uriarte's rivals know what they need to do. And if it's a case of releasing the brake just to push them ever so slightly wide and get more riders in the mix, they could potentially need to do it.
Uriarte as well is in that situation where he doesn't need to fight for the win, for the podium. If he wanted, he can have enough pace just to run in P4, P3, P5 on his own, let them fight it out for victory, and he can wrap up the title that way. Of course, every rider wants to wrap up the championship with victory, but sometimes it's not possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way everyone wants to end it. However, whenever the race starts unfolding, perhaps a second or a third or potentially even a fourth looked slightly nicer at the time, because we know how aggressive Junior GP can be. It's pass or be passed out on circuit. Brian Uriarte, what a year it's been, regardless of what happens in this race. Time and time again, he's been standing on the top step of the podium. And well, yesterday he took his 5th pole position of the season. That's how things stand though. 66 points between himself and Rico Salmela, and 71 points back is Marco Morelli, with Casey O'Gorman still in mathematical contention on 72.
Yeah, we've got 4 riders in mathematical contention on that graphic. The key number is 75, so Joel Esteban, it would come down to count back, so it is just the 4 riders effectively. Brian Uriarte, as we said, match point in race 2. He'll be hoping he can wrap it up.
Of course, after this race, just 2 remain in 2025. 2 at Valencia, just 50 rounds, 50 points to decide the rest of the championship, of course, because once this is decided, if it's decided today for Brian Uriarte, we still have the runner-up to decide. We still have 3rd place, which look like they're going to go all the way to the wire. Now, on the warm-up lap, onto the grid, the revs will rise in just a few moments' time. We'll come to a stop on the grid. Red flag at the front will be removed. What a season it's been so far. 3 races left in 2025. The first of them about to get underway here in Barcelona. Brian Uriarte faces match point. It was the other rider actually with his hand up in the air. So is that Nicholas on the number 37 back in shot for the AGR team? So Nicholas, it does look like, is going to be pushed off the grids, and that is the AGR squad rider. Goes back to pit lane now, and he runs back to the pits, and he'll make his way to hopefully get that bike restarted. So 37 does enter the pit lane as we thought, and a slight delay to things, a little bit more pressure to think about things. The red lights though are now on, and away we go finally. Brian Uriarte does lead the charge through the 51. He storms his way towards turn 1. We can see now the 37 has got the machine going, and he leaves pit lane. Marco Morelli though, a cracking start for himself. 97 on the Honda. The MLAV racing machine does lead on the run to turn 1. Joel Esteban already up into the podium positions. Can he claim second? Nearly. A little bit of contact though between himself and Veda Bertama, but luckily both of them staying on. Brian Uriarte has been pushed back down to P5 as things stand. He's sitting at the moment just behind Jesus Rios, of course, race 1 winner, but so far a nice clean start. Casey O'Gorman also trying to get himself into the mix.
A nice clean start for Uriarte and for Joel Esteban. Very similar to what we saw in race 1, just straight up into the podium positions. Just in P4 at the moment, although looking to make the move on Rios at turn 5, doesn't make it stick, with Uriarte just behind.
Now though, a little bit wide on the exit for Jesus Rios. He doesn't want the likes of Marco Morelli or Veda Patama to run away with things. Looking at the inside for a move that was Brian Uriarte. Has he been able to make that one work? We're going to have to wait and see, as he's sitting in around P4 as things stand. Heading through nice and clean through turn 9, and then once again slipstream will play a big factor. So Uriarte is ahead of Jesus Rios on this opening lap, but will all change at turn 10, you would suggest so?
You would, yeah. Uriarte defending through the outs, just sweeping across turn 10 there to retain P3 with Rios just behind and Esteban slotting into P5. Casey O'Gorman also in this lead group, as he was this morning.
Yeah, Brian Uriarte there, a nice line through turn 10, and Joel Esteban being the real loser of turn 10 as he's back down to P5. He did then to the corner in around third and then dropped all the way down. So we head out of the final corner to complete the first lap of action. It is Marco Morelli who leads away by half a second over Veda Pratama. Brian Uriarte facing match point here in Barcelona. He sits in third, but he's going to have company at turn 1, you would suggest. Into the braking zone we go now, and Adrian Cruces up the inside he goes, slots into P4, and once again Joel Esteban moving back down the order, down into P7.
A fast start from Esteban, but as you say, dropping down the order. Uriarte down 2 places from his starting position, but no problem for the number 51 as it stands. It looks like Morelli is trying to break away. He wants to run this race at his own pace, on his own.
Yeah, you would suggest that's the case, but the thing for Morelli, if he was to finish first and like Brian Uriarte was to finish second or third, it would still be championship done. And at the moment, as Veda Pratama has a twitch on the front and the entry to turn 5, they almost need the biggest group possible in this league group to start messing up each other and to start messing up each other's lines and pace onto the straights. But nonetheless, Marco Morelli's decided he doesn't want anything to do with this as he heads off into the lead. Pratama is under a lot of pressure from your championship leader, who looks up the inside at turn 9, and well, you would say if he doesn't make it at turn 9, he's going to be looking for a move at turn 10. Brian Uriarte in the slipstream, he's going to pull out of it now into the braking zone. Up the inside, he looks at Veda Pratama, but thinks better of it.
Pratama defending very well on the brakes through turn 10. Turn 9 is not the usual overtaking opportunity. We've seen it a few times, but very, very difficult to put off. Different lines here through turn 12 as Uriarte looks to take as much corner speed as possible, be as close to the rear wheel of Pratama as he can on the back straight. We head towards the start-finish line yet again. Look at the gap already formed. Down the inside at the final corner, Brian Uriarte goes, and well, away goes into second position, trying to catch on to the back of Marco Morelli, trying to break the pace of the riders ahead. No surprise there, fastest lap going the way of the 97, a 147.678. As well, Jesus Rios in the slipstream of Uriarte. Will he want to move at turn 1? No, he will not. Casey O'Gorman, though, does on Esteban. With Morelli, he's now more than a second clear, so he is beginning to get into that phase where slipstream, he won't be giving a slipstream to the chasing pack. So in terms of race victory, Morelli is playing this perfectly, and that gap now 1.7 seconds.
Now though, Casey O'Gorman, we've seen him make 2 moves at turn 1, and this is the race start at turn 1. And well, you can just see already, Joel Esteban, it's the launch off the line that he got that was really making them able to go into the podium places before he even arrives in the braking zone.
It was another superb launch for the number 78. He does this a lot throughout the season. As we said, maybe not the best at getting the most out of it over 1 lap, but as soon as the lights go out, straight into the podium contention.
And of course, Marco Morelli, he was the rider leading towards the final corner at race 1 before he then got pipped and was actually shoved off the podium entirely. So perhaps he's just decided to himself that he's forgetting about any championship odds and is just going out there to get another win to his name this season.
Doesn't want a repeat of race 1, that's for sure. Uriarte looking relatively comfortable in second place now, ahead of Rios, who is under a lot of pressure from O'Gorman and Esteban behind. If they start battling, Uriarte has a good chance just to gap them and run in second fairly lonely.
As Rico Salmela, we look further down this order, but Rico Salmela, he entered the weekend second in the championship. For him currently, P8 in the race. It's not been maybe the weekend that you'd hoped for so far. This is how things stand, however, and it would be Brian Uriarte continuing to lead the championship, and that of course would be enough with only 50 points remaining up for grabs this season. But how long will he remain in second position as the likes of Rios looks for a move, and O'Gorman of course on the run to turn 1 now. We enter the braking zone, Doctor's Dangle for Brian Uriarte, and somehow he holds on to it. He's fast in a straight line, that's for sure.
He's fast in a straight line and he's strong under braking as well, which makes him very, very difficult to pass in a typical overtaking opportunity. O'Gorman looks like he's taking a slightly narrower line through turn 3, setting up a move into turn 4, but it looks like Uriarte has just enough to defend from the number 67.
And currently the gap between Morelli and Uriarte sits at 1.1 seconds, so we'll keep our eye on that gap and see if it closes at all over the next few laps. Of course, if they start battling with the number 51, you would suggest it is going to get even bigger, but nonetheless, further back, Adrian Cruces makes another move, and that looks to be up the inside of Rico Salmela. He's made that one work, and up into P8 he now goes. So this second to 9 to this P2 to P9 rider group is certainly close together out on track, like we've seen in race 1.
Exactly what we saw in race 1. Around a second and a half separating P2 to P9. Again, this is allowing Morelli to escape. He doesn't even need to push to maintain the gap at this point. It's stabilised at 1.1, 1.2 as they cross the sector line there. So he's doing everything he needs to manage tyres while also maintaining a healthy gap at the front.
Salmella's scrap is continuing. He got sat up there through turn 10, and Crusez back through, repaying the favour, that's for sure. But Jesus Rios right on the back of Casey O'Gorman. So it's almost like Jesus Rios is planning, if O'Gorman makes any attack soon, well, he's going to follow him through on that. Or, if Casey O'Gorman doesn't make a move soon, you would suggest that the 67 soon going to be pushed down the order. Now, using the slipstream yet again, Brian Uriarte is going to need to break very, very deep into turn 1 if he wants to hold on to second position. Towards turn 1 we go now, heavy on the anchors now, and Jesus Rios with the inside line. He swoops into second, pushing Uriarte back to third.
Still a good position for Uriarte to be in, even with Rios coming through on him into turn 1. Both of them breaking very deep, but it looked like Uriarte taking a different line there, but Rios very wide, but enough to stay ahead as Uriarte resists O'Gorman.
Yeah, I think Brian Uriarte there just got sucked in by Jesus Rios' line. We've seen how wide Rios went, and well, Brian Uriarte did very much a similar thing. So following his line, following his braking points and throttle points, that's what we've seen time and time again in this class, as Casey O'Gorman makes a crucial move. Up the inside he goes and up into P3. However, Brian Uriarte's charm is responding straight away. Does look up the inside at turn 7, but thinks better of it.
Turn 7 is not a place where Uriarte needs to make a move. It's very risky to do so there. Same with turn 9, just as they go for it here. Turn 10 and turn 1 are his safest options. At the front, the gap for Morelli, now 1.9 seconds, so he has done exactly what he needs to do in the early stages, and while these guys scrap it out, he's just extending that lead.
Joel Esteban also through now, so Brian Uriarte dropping back down to P5. It's beginning to get a little bit trickier for him out on circuit. It's what we see time and time again. Whenever things get tough in the junior GP races, you just start losing positions. You need to keep your heads cool and regain your composure to begin working your way back to the front. Now, Casey O'Gorman and Jesus Rios are going to continue battling for second position with Joel Esteban. So you would suggest with these riders battling in front of him, the three of them, there still is chances for them to make a mistake without Uriarte even needing to do anything.
Absolutely, yeah, there's a chance with a group this close heading into turn 1. I mean, Uriarte is in the middle of it, well, on the outside of it, as he swoops across into P2. He'll be looking, if he can, just to break away. He doesn't want to be in this fight at this stage of the championship. Knowing how far ahead Morelli is, he's more than 2 seconds behind number 97 now.
Brian Uriarte, what a move that was on the run to turn 1. Just holding firm all the way around the outside. And well, Marco Morelli, looking at the lap times, last time around 1 second slower. Obviously, it was a tough lap for Brian Uriarte, so now it's time for him to regain a little bit of ground. We're on lap 6 at the moment. Of course, another thing that we need to keep an eye on this one, just in case of any red flags, is the 2/3 distance on lap 9, which is when the 51 really needs to be in prime position.
2/3 race distance is where, if there is a red flag, and obviously we hope not, that the race will be called, there wouldn't be a restart with full points awarded. So at that point, that is when you need to be in the positions for Uriarte to win the title, for Morelli to still be out in P1 to be sure that the race will be won with full points.
2.3 seconds of an advantage, but all eyes are on this fight for second. Rico Salmela, after battling with Adrian Crusez just a few laps ago, now, well, he's put himself into the podium positions and put himself ahead of Casey O'Gorman, which a few laps ago looked like a tough task for the 27.
It did look like a tough ask for the Finnish rider, but in podium contention right now. But the run into the turn 1 through this final corner, Uriarte currently leads it, trying to get ahead as much as he can. A little gap might help him at the breaking point of turn 1, but he'll have so many riders looking to use his slipstream to move ahead.
They really get close to the green on the exit of turn 13, the penultimate corner. But nonetheless, to turn 1 we go yet again. Uriarte on the normal racing line, and he'll just swoop round. It's what we've seen a few laps ago. Salmela slightly wide. Is this going to invite a move at any point for Jesus Rios? Of course, winner last time out in race 1. As now through turn 3 we go. Try not to trip your rear tyre too much, as Uriarte does go wide. Well, let's invite a move for Rico Salmela. Down the inside he looked at turn 4, but the move actually is going to be made from Adrian Crusez, who gets ahead of his teammate Rios at turn 4.
A good move from Crusez there to move up the order. He's having a very strong return to the championship. Although Rios up the inside at turn 5 to move back ahead of his teammate, and Uriarte just holding on to P2 from Rico Salmela.
Slotting himself in. 2.9 seconds is Marco Morelli's margin. Looking at the lap times at 1:48.1. Meanwhile, this group behind running in the mid 1:48s, mid to low 1:48s. So just showing how much time you can lose when you're battling out there on circuit. Meanwhile, Marco Morelli, he can just hit his lines, hit his brake markers, and if anything, looks like he's on a Sunday ride.
It looks like a very simple ride from Morelli. Obviously, we know it isn't, but it looks like it with the way the race is playing out. Now 3 seconds clear We saw Salmela was on the green through turn 7 and 8, something to keep an eye on, because too many of those, you'll get warnings, you'll eventually get a penalty, and particularly on the last lap, if you touch the green, you'll be demoted 1 place. So something to keep an eye at, but Salmela was definitely on the green through turn 8.
Marco Morelli now continues to lead the way. They lead the way on to make it 7 laps to go. Out the final corner we go yet again. Brian Uriarte is so strong out this final corner, and this seems to be one of his key advantages, that he's got so much tension down in the pit box. They know how important this result is. A few smiles though, and you can't help but not smile, because look at this fight that we have on our hands at the moment.
I think those smiles will get bigger as the races go through. That was Salmela back up into P2 through turns 1 and 2 on Jesus Rios.
Yeah, so Jesus Rios now dropping back down to P4 as Rico Salmela looks to take second, currently in third. He looks up the inside over at turn 4, but thinks better of it yet again. As at number 10, well, comes up the inside of his teammate at turn 4. It's a move that Adrian Crusez seems to love. A move that he's made a few times now. Now into turn 5 we go. Rico Salmela down the inside, as is Jesus Rios. And with both moves completed nice and clean. What kind of response now can the 51 have? He takes a slightly wider approach to turn 7. No move that made there yet again, as you would suggest, as we build towards a turn 8, turn 9, or perhaps even a turn 10 move. He's going to slot into the slipstream now and get everything nice and tucked in down the straight.
Turn 10 is the safest place to make the move as it stands. With the championship standings graphic, we can see he's 62 points clear. Morelli would move into second, tied with Salmela. Uriarte doesn't make the move, so Salmela stays in P2. But as it stands, this is enough for Uriarte to win the championship.
Also in Brian Uriarte's head, you have to think about, we know how strong he is out of that final corner. We know how strong he is into the braking zone at turn 1. So perhaps now he's just building towards a move there. Yellow flag's out at turn 9, so hopefully not too much of an issue there. So we'll wait and see for any more information on that one. But there is your racer there. Over the line he comes. Pit board's out. Teams hard at work, as they have been throughout the weekend since Thursday at this circuit. But towards turn 1 we go yet again. We're expecting Uriarte to get ahead, but he already has. He's already got that one made. Into the braking zone we go. He'll take the normal racing line and somehow manage to stay ahead. But Adrian Crusez now up into third as Jesus Rios loses a lot of positions, and it was Lucas Brown that became our follower over at turn 9. So super disappointing there for the British Talent Team rider.
Very disappointing. We'll just see what happens. Losing the front, very easy to do at turn 9. Very tricky track, and a very tricky corner as well, despite the relatively, well, it is a very quick corner actually, coming through turn 7 and 8.
Yeah, and some damage to that Honda, but a massive shame for Lucas, and hopefully they can get that all fixed up. We'll see him back in action at Valencia for the final round of the season. But Marco Morelli leading the way at the front from Brian Uriarte, of course. Casey O'Gorman back into the podium places, though, ahead of Hakim Dinesh. Now, Dinesh, super experienced rider in this class, and now has some Grand Prix World Championship experience under his belt from the Malaysian Grand Prix. And certainly coming to the forefront of this one, the first time this race that we've seen him towards a podium battle, and he looks to stamp his authority pretty soon on Casey O'Gorman, you would think.
He does. He's going to go and defend from Jesus Rios there into turn 10 under braking. But yeah, he looks like he's got the pace to challenge O'Gorman. Perhaps Uriarte, who at one point looked like had a bit of a gap to the chasing pack, but that has come down on the run into turn 10.
Just over 4 seconds Morelli's gap now sits. He continues to stretch that margin out, and well, it's simply impressive stuff. He's making his way towards the start-finish line now as we make our way out of the final corner. And well, it's going to be another run to the line for Brian Uriarte. Each lap is a good sign just to see if he can hold on to that advantage at the line, so he knows what sort of position that he does need to be in for this final lap if he wants to hold on to it.
It does, although it looks like he hasn't been able to hold it this time around. He goes into the corner second behind the number 27 Salmela, and then drops down to P4, potentially P5 with Dinesh on the inside for turn 3. It's all a very big group through the opening corners of this lap. This is exactly what Uriarte didn't want at this stage of the race.
Yeah, so Jesus Rios at the moment up into second position for himself. Hakim Dinesh just behind him, and then Casey O'Gorman, the top of the trails with their riders, as Rico Salmela now slots in the head. So a couple of difficult corners, it's fair to say. Brian Uriarte down in P6, but he's going to soon try and make his way up that order. You can see how things stand in the championship. Joel Esteban also now through on Brian Uriarte. Another change in the championship standings. Things are soon going to get tight unless the 51 can get back ahead a few of these riders.
It will start getting nervy now. 50 points is the magic mark. 55 ahead of Morelli as it stands. It looks like Morelli has this race under control with 5 or 4.5 laps to go. So we know his points aren't going to change. So it depends on how many riders Uriarte passes, or how many riders pass Uriarte.
Yeah, exactly. Now we head in, and Brian Uriarte now loses a few more places. Veda Putama on the attack too. So with a few more corners, we could potentially see the 51 right at the back of his pack. The only saving grace for himself is the fact we are coming to his favourite point in the circuit, which was ironically where he lost all the positions last time around.
It was, yeah. It is his favourite point of the track, even though he lost out last time around. He'll have the slipstream this time. Last time he didn't, so that will be crucial. We see Morelli is miles out in front as we see a replay of his braking into turn 1, and you just saw in the background the 4 riders line astern.
Yeah, exactly, tipping it in, and well, this is the fight. The back end just coming out of line, but luckily slotting back into place by the time Uriarte fully tipped into the corner. The back brake being super useful on these junior GP machines, and of course through turn 1, and then they tip it round through turn 2. So here is your leader, 6 seconds now ahead, and here is the chasing pack. Hakim Dinesh looking up the inside over at turn 4. The number 13 now into second place. Brian Uriarte, P7 for himself. The 51, what a ride it's been so far. I definitely don't think he's going to finish that far down. We know how cool, calm and collected he can be. Casey O'Gorman launching the attack on Rico Salmela, trying to hold him off. Salmela across the line in second place, and now he's about to drop back down to P4. Brian Uriarte looking up the inside though at turn 7, and he's made that one work. A difficult move to make, but proven that times are tough.
Very difficult move to make, and slightly surprising that he would make it there, because we know that's not a normal overtaking opportunity. We now get the run into turn 10, and we'll see how close they are. Uriarte moving to the inside line, trying to get ahead of Salmela. Under braking at turn 10, can he get ahead of the Finnish rider? Bit boxed in, but Salmela goes slightly wide, and the 51 moves ahead.
Right now, we tip it in towards the final sector. His championship rivals are like a dog with a bone. Brian Uriarte is under so much pressure at the moment, and so far he's not made any big mistakes. This is just a normal race to him in his head. He's continuing to push on. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of nerves in the back of his mind, or perhaps maybe 1 or 2% in the back of his mind, thinking about the championship, which could be decided here this afternoon. You can see the swarm of riders making their way across the pit exit as we head towards turn 1 now. Hakim Dinesh holds it from Joel Esteban as Brian Uriarte does as usual and swoops around the outside. So that's going to be P4 yet again.
Fit P4 for the number 51 on the back of Joel Esteban through turn 3 as well. We saw Uriarte take a slightly wider line throughout the race, but this time more a conventional line, let's say, under braking for turn 4, but not making the move on Joel Esteban.
No moves made just yet, but turn 5 is coming, and we have seen some moves from Brian Uriarte over at turn 5. Will it be another? Not quite yet. Perhaps maybe a turn 7 surprise yet again. It's a risky one as always, but it's clear he's feeling comfortable. He's feeling pretty confident on board his machine. No moves this time around. He wasn't quite close enough. You just need to be close enough to dive down the inside. Live Championship graphics, a few smiles in the pit box. I'm sure they're loving the action on circuit, but at the same time, not loving the fact that it's constantly chopping and changing between their rider.
I think they would much prefer to be where Marco Morelli is to wrap up this title, but Uriarte doing a fine job to make sure he can wrap up as he's under pressure from Cruzes into turn 10, but the number 10 can't make it stick, so Uriarte stays in P4.
Those Finetwork riders trading paint as always. They have done pretty much for this entire race, especially at the likes of turn 4 and turn 10. As they continue to battle on. Hakim Dinesh now, he stayed in that second position now for a few laps and continuing to show that he is feeling confident before, of course, he moves to Moto 3 next year with the MSI squad.
Dinesh looking confident as well as obviously feeling confident. He looks like he's got a bit of a gap to Esteban. It was 3/10 across the line. Uriarte in the slipstream of the number 78 on the run into turn 1, using the yellow on the pit exit as much, widening the track as much as they can. Uriarte sweeping to the outside, but Esteban holds on to P2, and Uriarte is wide through turn 1.
Yeah, he's wide, and he's going to lose a little bit of ground because of that. Of course, he tried to take his normal sweeping line, but then suddenly there was an Aspar team machine right in his way. However, at turn 3, he's going to make amends for that one. Looking up the inside, lining up a move at turn 4. Into the braking zone we go, and that is job done yet again. Second place at the head of this field for Brian Uriarte, and then of course they will appear back into view towards turn 5. Jesus Rios and Adrian Cruzes continuing to battle away out on circuit. Casey O'Gorman at the moment watching this one unfold as Hakim Dinesh in just a space of 1 lap has dropped from second position all the way back down to P7.
He has, yeah, not the end of the race Dinesh would have been hoping for. We can see just telling people to calm down at this stage. 2 laps to go. The margin 66 points as it stands. That's a live graphic. As it stands, good enough for Uriarte to win the title. Morelli, though, almost 7 seconds clear of this chasing pack.
yeah, Morelli has been it's been a standout performance to say the very least for him this season. This has been one of the standout performances. We've seen it on the final lap duel between himself and Brian Iriarte, who's just managed to pick the win. However, here it's been dominant from start to finish. He's proved yet again he doesn't want to let anyone get ahead of him. However, all talking points are soon going to turn to Brian Iriarte. It's Morelli who leads, but it's Iriarte who sits one lap away from becoming the Junior GP World Champion.
Encouragement from the pitbull there as they head on to the last lap. The number 51 in prime position right now, although it's going to be a big group of riders heading into the braking zone at turn 1. We wait to see. Oh, there's a big crash in the background.
Big crash in the background on the main straight. And of course, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Of course, double yellows will be waving there for the rest of the field. But Brian Iriarte sitting in second. Red flag now out. So the red flag out. Iriarte showing his frustration with that one. That was Adrian Crusez. And actually, I think he's realising exactly what this means. Brian Iriarte crossed the line, what looked to be second position. The team already beginning to celebrate, making sure that it is confirmed, but it looks like he should become the 2025 FIM Junior GP World Champion. The team definitely thinks so. The celebrations will begin. Marco Morelli was leading that one. But what a race, what a ride, what a season it's been for Brian Iriarte. Of course, we hope that Adrian Crusez is okay. A scary incident towards turn 1. But wheeling his way on this lap. Hugs, celebration, and memories that will last a lifetime. It's been a season of hard work. It's been a season for his journey to the top. What a journey this season has been for Brian Iriarte to reach the top of the Junior GP. Marco Morelli, he'll celebrate the race win. He dominated from start to finish. It was an incredible race for himself as the burnouts, the celebrations, and the champion